Production funding for Flying Squirrels Insider is made possible in part by
Secure Testing Services, providing 24-hour on-site drug and alcohol testing for businesses.
and by
Clean water is one of our most valuable resources. Conserving it should be all of our responsibility. Remember every day to make every drop count. Wash full loads, take shorter showers, turn off your faucet. Water, use it wisely. Let's commit to conserve.
Good evening and welcome to the third episode of the 8th season of Richmond Flying Squirrels Insider. I'm Trey Wilson, he's Jake Eisenberg, and we are excited to bring you guys everything behind the scenes of all things Richmond Flying Squirrels related. Utility Buddy from the City of Richmond Department of Public Utilities makes us aware of Richmond's natural gas safety program. Getting ready to install a fence or put an addition onto your house? Contractors, homeowners, and do-it-yourselfers, call 811 before you dig. Text to win free flying squirrel stuff. Text FSI to 63975. Message and data rates apply. Mobile services provided by Opt-in Technologies. Well, Jake, the Flying Squirrels coming off of another road trip back home, and all the wins and losses haven't really fallen very favorably for the Flying Squirrels over the last couple of weeks.
12-23 record overall, 1-4 on the recent road trip, but back in the friendly confines of the Diamond here in RVA.
It seems like it's a pretty good team. There's good pitching, there's good hitting. They just haven't been able to string it together to pick up wins. So there have been a lot of positive things to look at on this team, though, and one of them this year is some power that we haven't really seen in a lot of Flying Squirrels seasons before. The Squirrels are up near the top of the Eastern League in home runs hit this year. 33
home runs this season, and they're doing most of the damage, though, on the road.
Yeah, that's right. So this season, the Flying Squirrels have only hit 9 home runs at home. They're averaging under a half of a home run per game. And on the road, though, 24 home runs. It's a home run and a half per game, which would, if that holds for the whole season, that would more than double the previous franchise, or almost double the previous franchise record for the most home runs hit on the road.
Basically, if you're watching the Flying Squirrels play on the road, you can expect at least 1 home run, maybe even 2, 1.5 per game. It's an average. Then you come back home and you see the Flying Squirrels. The ball just doesn't leave the yard as much here at the Diamond as it does in some of the other parks in the Eastern League.
Yeah, I've talked with several different people over the years about what makes the Diamond such a hard place to hit home runs, and there are a lot of factors, some of them with how the air circulates through this ballpark because of the overhanging roof and the way that the ballpark was constructed, but also the power alleys. The crown in the outfield is much deeper here than some other ballparks, so down the line, while you look at the regular dimensions of the ballpark, you see 330 down the lines, you see 407 in straightaway center field. You think that's not that bad, but they're so deep and wide in the power alleys of this ballpark.
Yeah, point being, if you see a home run fly out of the ballpark here at the Diamond, it's hit a long way.
Yeah, that's absolutely for sure. So this team has some power. The home ballpark has kind of matched that. So some home runs on the road for the team as a whole, and the player who kind of reflects that the most has been Chris Shaw. He's got 7 home runs now in this 2019 season. 6 of those have come on the road, but overall he's putting together a very good year.
Yeah, Chris Shaw's tied for the team lead in home runs with Jalen Miller. He's also leading the team in RBIs with 21, and that's what you expect from a guy like Chris Shaw, who spent a month in the big leagues just last season, now back at the Diamond for the first time since 2017, and he's doing damage against Eastern League pitching, kind of like we expected.
He comes in with a different level of experience of a lot of players in AA. He's the number 11 prospect during the organization, but it comes with that major league background that he picked up last season. And Willie Harris said that he's been able this year to kind of bring some experience from his major league time and bring it to this Richmond Flying Squirrels clubhouse. And it's really been nice for some of the young guys to see a guy come down and have a good attitude and be a good teammate in the clubhouse.
Yeah, especially with the rest of the outfielders, Janeshwi Fargas, Jacob Hayward included. All of those guys have been able to learn from things that Chris Shaw learned when he was here in 2017.
Jacob Hayward, you just mentioned his name, he was on the injured list for a little while, but he came back in a big way. He homered on the first pitch off the IL down in Bowie, and that led to a pretty big week for him. He ended up being named Eastern League Player of the Week for, when you're seeing this episode, it'll be about 2 weeks ago. But a great stretch of games for Jacob Hayward there, as he's really been rolling through this 2019 season.
Not only that, but he hit a home run the other day in Erie off one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball, Casey Mize. Now the #1 pitching prospect in all of baseball. Jacob Hayward took him deep, his 5th home run of the season. He's 3rd in the league in on-base percentage, so he's still really doing a great job of taking a lot of walks. 21 for him now this season. Hayward's been really doing it all at the plate.
Flying Squirrels faced Casey Mize, who was the #1 overall draft pick in 2018 in Erie the other day, and gave him really the worst start of his professional career. He allowed 4 runs, which isn't that bad, but for Casey Mize, it was the most he had ever allowed in a game. So Jacob Hayward was one of the players who helped do some damage. Erie ended up coming back and winning that game on a walk-off, but it was good to see the Flying Squirrels bats get going against one of the best pitchers in all of minor league baseball.
Absolutely, and what we've talked about, the home runs. Jacob Hayward's got 5. Chris Shaw's tied for the team lead with 7. Who's he tied with? Jalen Miller.
Yeah, that's right. Jalen Miller, a couple more home runs and 4 steals over his last 10 games. He has shown the combination this season of power and speed on the base paths that is very rare in minor league baseball players and really in baseball players in general.
And one of the things that's kind of rare across minor league baseball is having 20 home runs, 20 steals, basically a 20-20 season. You might see that between a few levels, but you're not really going to see that at one level in particular. I did the math on this. Whether or not it's right remains to be seen. Numbers aren't my forte. But 28 home runs, 40 steals. That's what Jalen Miller is on pace for this season after having 7 home runs and 10 steals through his first 34 games.
10 steals is tied for the most in the Eastern League. So it's been impressive to see Jalen Miller, who was a second-round draft pick a few years ago, put together the speed and the power here in his first AA season. I think that he's been one of the breakthrough players for this Flying Squirrels team. Looking around the roster at some other guys who have started to come through and make a name for themselves of late, Heath Quinn has put together the longest on-base streak for any player in the Eastern League so far this season. It's at 19 games right now.
Yeah, the way Heath Quinn started this season, he was 3 for 35, batting average was under 100, but since then, like you said, Trey, a 19-game on-base streak. That's the longest active streak in the Eastern League, and we've really seen just a completely different approach from Heath Quinn. He's been more patient, he's drawn 7 walks in his last 10 games, he's seeing the ball a lot better. The AA adjustment from high A to AA is maybe the biggest jump in all of minor league baseball, and so you can kind of look at that first stretch for Heath Quinn and understand maybe what happened and what's changed to get to this point.
On the very first episode of Flying Squirrels Insider this season, Jake, you talked with Willie Harris, and he said one of the players to watch for a breakout this season was Johneshwy Fargas. Hadn't really seen it through April, but now that the calendar has turned to May, Fargas is starting to turn a corner. Now,
11 games in the month of May. Johneshwy Fargas is batting .281 in those games. He's also left the yard a couple of times, which is not necessarily something we expected to see from Johneshwy. We expected more to see some speed from Johneshwy Fargas, and that's come. He's got 8 steals this season.
And we just saw an addition back to the Flying Squirrels roster for Gio Brusa, who has had quite a hectic week. He started out the season here in Richmond. He went to San Jose for a little while. Then over a period of 3 days, he was in Southern California. He was in San Jose. Then he was in AAA with Sacramento. Then he was flying to the East Coast to meet the Flying Squirrels. He's back with Richmond now, and he's starting to get things picked up. He had a couple of home runs out in Erie.
Yeah, just bouncing back between the East Coast and the West Coast. And in that series against the Seawolves, I think we saw what Gio Brusa might be capable of at the AA level. It was a slow start for him when he started the season here and then went back to San Jose. Had a little bit of a slow start with the San Jose Giants too. But in that series against the Erie Seawolves, hits in all 3 games. He's now on a 3-game hitting streak, and he hit 2 home runs, 1 in the first game of the series and 1 off Casey Mize in the final game of the series.
Another new addition, and a former Erie Seawolves player, Will Maddox, joined the Flying Squirrels. He was released by the Detroit Tigers with the Erie Seawolves to start this year just about 2.5 weeks ago. And then joins the Flying Squirrels. One of his first games he's playing against the Erie Seawolves at his old ballpark. And how about on the very first pitch that he saw from a former first-round pick in Alex Vallejo, he hit a home run. Not a guy who hits a ton of home runs, but that had to be a pretty cool moment for Will Maddox, getting a leadoff home on the first pitch that he ever saw in his career against the organization that drafted him.
Yeah, you got to think there might have been a little bit more adrenaline for Will Maddox playing up at UPMC Park as a visitor for the first time. Not just the first pitch of the game, first pitch of the entire series, and Will Maddox leaves the yard. He ended up having a great series for the Flying Squirrels up against his old team. Also had a couple of great plays defensively at third base, and he's going to be a good hitter for the Flying Squirrels this season. A career .306 hitter and almost 400 minor minor league games. He brings a lot of experience at the plate to this Flying Squirrels team.
Let's quickly take a look at what some of the pitchers have done here of late. Brandon Lawson, a new addition to the Flying Squirrels, another free agent pickup for the Giants. He was one of the only pitchers, or one of the few pitchers there for a stretch that could actually get through 5 innings in a start due to some circumstances that were falling over some of the pitchers. And then also here over the last road trip, we saw the first AA start for Caleb Berger, who just came up from San Jose.
Yeah, Brandon Lawson now 5 innings in back-to-back starts. He started this season with the Tampa Bay Rays organization, but they released him right at the end of spring training. He was ready to play independent league baseball, but then got signed by the San Francisco Giants, and he's been an important addition to this rotation. Funny enough, he's really good friends with former Flying Squirrel Christian Arroyo. Arroyo was actually in his wedding this past October, so they're best friends. They grew up together in Tampa, Florida, and basically they've swapped organization. That's kind of funny.
We'll have to pick up some more about that later on in the season. Another consistent arm in the rotation this year, probably the most consistent. I guess you could call him the ace of the staff at this point, has been Connor Menez.
Sure, left-hander Connor Menez has been Mr. Consistency for the Richmond Flying Squirrels this season. A couple of starts ago, the last one at the Diamond, 6 innings, 1 hit. He retired 18 of the 19 batters he faced. I think you would agree. I think that's the most dominant start we've seen from a Flying Squirrels pitcher this season.
I would say so, and Connor Menez has been consistently the strongest pitcher in the rotation, and I think that we certainly expect to see that carry on. One of the top strikeout pitchers in minor league baseball last year. Well, it's a special season here in Richmond. The Flying Squirrels, for the first time ever, hosting the Eastern League All-Star Game. And it's not just the All-Star Game, it's the Eastern League All-Star Week, presented by Genworth, coming up July 7th through 10th. And last week, we made a few announcements to add some more of the details to fill in what's going to be going on with the 2019 Eastern League All-Star Week.
What? We've got a pretty aggressive schedule already for All-Star Week, but we're actually going to announce today that we're adding another event, July 9th, Tuesday morning from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., a downtown pep rally, and then we're going to have a home run derby that's going to consist of the all-star players that are in the field, and then we're going to have 14 different celebrities. I'm going to announce 10 of them. He drove #1 in NASCAR, Elliott Sadler. For you VCU fans, Eric Maynard, 8-year NFL veteran, 2-time Pro Bowler, Michael Robinson, the cleanup hitter, bang! University of Virginia, New Orleans Saints quarterback, put it together for Aaron Brooks, AB. Coach Chris Mooney, University of Richmond basketball. From VCU, Coach Mike Rhodes, who, by the way, is already talking smack. Representing University of Richmond football, Tim Hightower. Probably the most fun Flying Squirrels of all time, Mark Minikazi. We're going to have an actual contestant from the TV show Survivor here. I looked it up. He's the most despised contestant of all time. Johnny Fairplay, very, very popular VCU basketball player, and also now the tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, Mo Alley Cox. We're very happy that in this case, Mo said yes instead of Mo says no.
All season long, we've been taking a look back at the 10 seasons of Flying Squirrels baseball, and a man who's been a fixture of those 10 seasons, we welcome in Steve Ruckman, who is the Executive Director, Stadium and Field Operations. Is that close? Stadium Operations and
Field and Ballpark Operations.
Field and Ballpark Operations. There we go. You wear a lot of hats.
I do,
here, including the one you got on right now. Right. So, you were part of the original crew here. What was it like to start something new, start a brand new franchise here in Richmond?
It was pretty intense. I mean, you get here and it's literally a blank slate. There's nothing here, not even kitchen sinks.
Yeah.
And so we had to purchase everything. You know, we had to do that in just a few short months, and it was a whirlwind. It was just, you know, you had no time to like take a breath. You just had to get it all done.
If you could describe your job in just a few words, which I know is impossible to do because, like I said a moment ago, you wear so many hats, there's so many things that goes into it, but how would you describe what exactly it is that you do with the Flying Squirrels?
Not to sound conceited, but it's kind of like a magician. You get certain tasks that you have to do, and you have to get really creative. You know, it's an older ballpark, older field, and you just have to figure out a way to get things done, whether that's, you know, from repairing concrete that's crumbling or falling, from, you know, the field, you know, being so old, having the canopy and shade is an issue, having, you know, baseball start January 15th, it can be a challenge.
Yeah, there are, you've mentioned some of them there, some challenges with having to maintain the playing surface in the diamond. You know, you're sharing it with VCU all year and other games that are played here. And as you talked about, the overhanging canopy here at the ballpark blocks a lot of the sun, which is vital for this surface to stay alive.
Right, it is. And, you know, in the winter months, you know, when the sun is at a lower angle, you know, we actually have, you know, major shade issues that when, you know, at 12 o'clock, the entire infield is covered with shade. And grass does not grow when there's shade. It needs sunlight.
So your time with the Flying Squirrels is coming to a close. You'll be leaving us here soon after a great 10-year run. What would you say was one of the most challenging moments as a groundskeeper, something that you had to try to oversee in your time here?
The most challenging thing that I have come to find is just the communication between us and VCU. You know, trying to get everyone's schedules together and synced up. That way everybody gets what they want.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Flying Squirrels Baseball. We're going to take a look at some of what you do on a daily basis out on the field as well, but we want to make sure to wish you the best of luck in your next endeavors as you continue your career, though, outside of baseball.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, Ruck, we're going to walk through some of the things that you do on a daily basis, you and your crew, to take care of this playing surface. You've already gotten some of the stuff done today. The next step for you guys is going to be getting the infield watered. So we got to get this hose hooked up here.
Yep, let's go ahead and hook it up. Just going to put it in and turn it, and it locks in.
Just like that. So now this guy down here is live.
Yep, we'll go to the nozzle and we'll start watering.
I have been asked, I don't know how many times, people ask groundskeeper questions all the time, expecting the radio guy to know, who knows why.
Yeah.
But people are very curious, why are you watering the infield dirt? People say, aren't you part of the big job trying to keep it dry, and here you are getting it wet?
Yep, the main reasons that we do it is, there's two reasons. The biggest one is that when you water it, it softens it, so the spin rate of the ball slows down, and then footing actually gets better when it's wetter. And then the biggest one that people probably think is to keep the dust down.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah. It's just an added benefit.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
What does a normal work day look like for you and your crew?
So we get here at about 8:30, and we come in, we'll mow, we'll drag the dirt, we'll water it, we'll paint, you know, the foul lines, and by that time it's usually around lunch, so we take lunch, we'll come back, and we have to set up for batting practice. You know, bring out all the screens, bring out the batting turtle, and put out the mats, and that usually starts around 2:30, 3 o'clock. Team takes BP. An hour before the game we'll come out, we'll take everything down, and then we'll do our pregame stuff. So we're dragging the dirt, watering it, lining it, and then it's game time. During the game we do 2 drags, end of the third, end of the sixth, and then at the end of the night, which is usually around 9:30, we'll come out and we'll fix everything. You know, pack the plate, pack the mound, bullpens, drag, water again. Usually we get out of here roughly an hour and a half after the game ends.
Let's get some of this infield watered down and get some of the magic going that you guys have to do here on a daily basis.
All right, sounds good.
So you start from the first base side. The wind direction have anything to do with that?
It does. It all depends on which way the wind is blowing. And today it looks like I can start on first base. Usually I can start on third base. But Mother Nature decides to throw a curveball in and we'll start on first base.
Part of your job is basically you're almost like a professional weatherman as well, right? You got to keep an eye on the radar pretty much all day, every day.
Exactly. Not just the radar, weather conditions. You know, if it's a really hot day, the dirt's going to need a lot more water, the grass is going to need a lot more water. If it's a cooler, dry day, you may not need to water as much.
How many times a week do you think you actually come out here and cut the grass?
We cut on game days every day. On non-game days, we're about every other day. So we mow a lot.
I know one of the questions I hear a lot from fans about grounds crew type of stuff is, how do you get the patterns in the grass? It's, you know, the different shades of green, each line by, it's light refragment, right?
Right, so a light stripe is the grass going out, and a dark stripe is the grass looking in. You're actually looking into the canopy. So that's how you see those stripes or the patterns.
Yeah, every field has a little bit of a different layout with that. So now with water in the field here, you're gonna start from first, you're gonna go all the way around, do a full lap around the infield?
Yep, we'll do a full wrap around the entire thing.
You got Kyle, who's an assistant back here, and he's holding the hose up. What is the purpose of holding the hose up and keeping it off the grass back there?
So whenever I move out into the dirt, it's so that the hose doesn't drag on the dirt and create humps. We don't want to have any kind of lumps or bumps in the dirt, because that'll produce bad hops, and we don't want bad hops. Bad hops mean, you know, facial reconstruction or broken jaws, things like that.
Yeah, don't want to have, you want it to play as true as possible, so that part of being in baseball is you want every field to play the same way, right?
Exactly.
Whether we're in Erie, Pennsylvania, we're in Hartford, Connecticut, Portland, Maine, or right here in Richmond.
Exactly. You know, back in the day, there was a whole bunch of, you know, I guess advantages to home fields, but they've kind of done away with that. So everyone's the same now.
Well, Ruck, we're going to let you continue on the work that you guys have to do today. Kyle, thank you as well. Looking good over there. We are going to send it on to the next bit of Flying Squirrels Insider. Thanks so much, and best of luck in your next adventure after baseball.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Chuck Domino called and said, "Hey, have you heard Lou DeBella is trying to move the Norwich team down to Richmond?" And he goes, "Well, he hired me to put the staff together, and I told him that you would be running it." And I said, "Well, are you going to ask me at any point if this is going to happen or not?" And he said, "No, I wasn't going to ask you, but you're going down there." So the romantic part of the story is, I moved to Richmond, Virginia, sight unseen. We come here for a private tour. We walked into the concession stands, and I literally stuck to the floor. It was so nasty. I stuck to the floor, and I looked at Chucky, and I said, "You're ruining my life. This is going to be awful." And he looked at me, and he said, "Parney, this is going to be perfect." And that's when we took out a piece of paper and started kind of charting out the course of the franchise. What do we want to be about? Well, there were three things we ended up agreeing on. We wanted to be about fun every single day. Like every single day, you have to come here and you have to have a bounce in your step, and you have to have a good time, because guess what? If we don't have fun, how are our fans going to have fun? The second thing was to be different. The Richmond Braves have been here for a long time. They've been married to these fans for 42 years. And any relationship after 42 years, if you're not careful, it can get a little stale. We had to be that different type of relationship with the fans. And then third thing was impactful, and that's something that I've really worn on my sleeve the whole time, because I think that's what makes us different, is that we're not about 70 baseball games. We're about 365 days a year. We're about doing things with kids. We're about saying yes when people ask us to come places and not even thinking about the consequences of doing it. Nutsy did over, I think it was 600 appearances in the community last year. You know, some people said, well, the Braves were good, you should just do it the way they did it. Well, we knew we didn't want to do that. No offense at all to the Braves, but we knew we wanted to be fun, be different, be impactful. It all comes back to those three things. We drank water out of a fire hose. The announcement was September the 23rd, 2009, if my memory serves me right, and we played a game April 15th. Usually when a franchise moves into a town, they move in 18 to 24 months ahead of time. We'll renovate the ballpark. I think that's probably one of the most remarkable parts of this whole thing, is we were ready in 5.5 months, and I have no earthly idea how we did it. If you would call out everybody that worked here the first year and say, what moment will you never forget? Probably almost all of them will say opening night 2010, because we did it. And I remember sitting right, my desk at that point was right here, and I remember the absolute feeling of exhaustion after that first game was over was just overwhelming, but it was awesome.
And a great look back at the first decade of Richmond Flying Squirrels baseball, and that's something that we'll be doing much more throughout this season of Flying Squirrels Insider, looking back at the first 10 years of this franchise's great history. We also got today, Jake, to take a look at the upcoming Eastern League All-Star Week presented by Jim Worth, July 7th through 10th. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, no doubt about it. It's not just the All-Star Game on July 10th or the Celebrity Home Run Derby on July 9th. There's an entire week of events happening in Richmond, Virginia and here at the Diamond. I'm not really sure what I'm most excited about, but it's going to be awesome.
Mayor LeVar Stoney's All-Star Week kickoff at Browns Island on July 7th. That is free. Come out and join us. There'll be live music. There will be food. It's going to be a good time. Plus the All-Star Country Music Jam featuring Big and Rich at Richmond Raceway on July the 8th. And those tickets are available for that. Tickets are available for all the ticketed events right now. Squirrelsbaseball.com/all-star. Get them before they are gone. That's a wrap for this episode of Flying Squirrels Insider. Thanks to Jake. Thanks to our entire crew. I'm Trey Wilson. Oh, thanks to our guest, Steve Ruckman, as well. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Production funding for Flying Squirrels Insider is made possible in part by
Secure Testing Services, providing 24-hour on-site drug and alcohol testing for businesses. And by
Smell gas? Act fast. Don't just stand there. Leave the area. Get out. Go where the smell is no longer present and call 911. Making you aware, keeping you safe. We're Richmond's Natural Gas Safety Awareness Program.